Hello, everyone. Okay. So for everyone who is joining right now, you won't be able to use your video or talk to us. For now, it's by design. It's not Zoom misbehaving because we're expecting to have around 40 people in this meetup. So I asked our panelists to use the video and talk, and we will have an opportunity to talk later in the meeting. So when do we want to start, Liz? Like with how many people in the meeting?
Have you let everyone in?
Yeah. So for now it's like 33 people. Maybe we will wait for 1-2 minutes.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay.
At this point in a real life meetup, I usually offer the panelists some water. So guys, hopefully you have a glass of water in front of you.
Yes. Thank you, Liz. It's very nice of you.
Thanks, Liz.
Okay, just repeating the same message for everyone who just joined. You won't be able to talk to us or to use your video at this moment because we are expecting around 40 people in the meeting, and we will lift those restrictions after the panel, and you can network after. But you can use chat, and I will ask you to use chat very soon.
I like your voice. It sounds like you're a flight attendant. It's really
This calming. Is my corporate voice. This is my corporate voice. So yeah, you know, I saw a tweet one day, you know, like a woman was saying, working from home with your husband opens like all the sources of truth. So she didn't know that she was married to a let's circle back guy. And I have my corporate voice, so yeah, because like the level of fun in my life is very high right now. I'm just using my corporate voice to calm everyone down.
I feel really safe now. That's right.
Okay, so we have 40 people, 42, 43, 44.
Anya, I think you just got muted.
What did the host do to you?
Yeah. I mean, I had enough of myself. So I said that I will kick off the meeting, and then Liz will do her usual magic. Hello, welcome everyone. I have no idea how many of you had attended our meetups before. So let me just introduce the meetup. This is the meetup about changing your career, becoming a product manager, and it was and it is being organized by me, Anya Pishva. I work for Amazon, and Liz, who works for Habitat. We are both Russians. It's extremely important because we get stuff done. And one of the things that we did for you today, we've invited a couple of brilliant panelists to talk about job searching in COVID times. This is the first in the series of home Zoom meetups that we plan to organize. So please join our meetup group on meetup.com and watch out for the next and I keep adding people for the next update. So as I said, unfortunately, you are not able to use your voice and your video right now by design. later we will open the floor up for everyone to network. And before we will start, before I will pass the video, the mic on, I wanted to ask everyone to use the chat window you have. You should have the chat window on your left, or you can press the button at the bottom of your menu and check chat here. Yes, so please, can you tell us if you are searching for a job right now, or you are hiring right now, or you are being a product manager right now? Just send a couple of sentences, a couple of words about you. 3, 2, 1, go. Brilliant, thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, so people looking for PM role, and I continue to admit people. We have software developers who are interested in transitioning into PM, software, more software engineers. Thank you very much. Yeah, okay, so we have a lot of people looking for PM role, some of them being PMs and some of them being other roles. Yeah, so with that in mind, Liz, I'm passing the mic to you. What's this? Do I need, really? Yeah, okay, so yeah, I'm enjoying my power today. Thank you very much, Liz. Do I need to? Yeah, and Sam, yes, fine.
That was awkward.
But planned. Okay, so thanks, Liz, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anya. On my behalf, I also need to make a quick disclaimer about the explicit content in the that's possible during the meetup. I have a cat, so it may appear sometimes in the video. So hopefully allergy doesn't spread over Zoom, but I needed to warn you. And I want to thank all our participants and all our panelists today for joining. We are really lucky to have you all guys and to represent all kind of sides of the process of hiring PMs. And from the sign-up numbers, we've seen that the topic is really hot and everyone is thinking about it. So I guess I'll start with a couple of questions, and then you can type in your questions as well in the chat, as well as your introductions. And then I'll, in a couple of minutes, not a couple, in like 20, 30 minutes, I'll switch to the questions on the chat. So to kick off, maybe we can start with introductions, and I'll give the floor to you guys to make your own introductions. Maybe you can tell us about your role and what you do, and especially in these unusual times, what have been occupying you most for the last couple of weeks. So maybe, Nick, we can start with you. Tell us a bit about you. It's weird when we don't have a real circle and some natural order to go through.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. I can be adaptable. So I'm Nick Sebastian. I've been a tech recruiter for about 8 or 9 years. Last 3 or 4 years is specifically focused on product and helping build product teams. We probably operate across, I think when we last counted, 13 cities. So heavily in London, and then slowly we've heavily kind of quickly moved out to Europe, and we work across North America as well. So obviously a big part of my role is what we're talking about today and helping people transition. So now the director of my own recruitment consultancy, and that's helping people transition into product or helping people build a long-term roadmap for their product career. So that's it in short.
Amazing, thank you. And Carolien?
So yeah, I'm Carolien, or Carolien. I hail from the Netherlands, and I've worked in the nonprofit industry, in finance, and decided to make the switch to product management a while ago after doing the GA course in product management and also the data and analytics course at GA. And what's been occupying me for the last couple of weeks is seeing the same email in my inbox with the same jobs every day, but also doing consulting with some small businesses, which in times of COVID takes on a whole new meaning. So it's become a lot more intense on that front as well.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank
Oh,
you.
and applying, of course. Sorry.
Click and apply. Quick apply on LinkedIn. Thank you. Okay, Eloise, with you.
Hi, I'm Eloise. I'm head of product at Bud, which is a fintech startup. We build a platform for banks so they can use open banking technology and machine learning to provide better services and provide more access to financial products to their customers. Over the last few weeks, I've just transitioned from being a product manager, kind of specializing in data and AI, into this head of role. So I've been trying to hand over some of my teams, hiring for the data intelligence team, which has a lot of data scientists on, to replace me, so I can focus more on head of duties and setting teams up well for the next quarter with things like OKRs.
Thank you, and congratulations. That's a big move. And Sam, maybe that's a little bit frozen, but hopefully you're with us. Nope, Sam's frozen. He did apologize on the chat that he may have connection issues. You may need to move on because from experience it may take a while, and then the moment Sam is back, we'll give the floor to him again. Adaptable, that was the word you used, Nick.
Yep, exactly.
So I need to stay adaptable. I guess the first discussion questions I wanted to ask is basically cutting straight to the chase. And the question is, where do product roles still exist? How to find them? How to understand that it's a real role and it's not just an out-of-date ad on the website? And I guess maybe we can start with you, Nick, and like your experience working with the clients. What has been the trend recently? Yeah. Who is still hiring? Who is not?
Sure. So something that I always try to get the product people that I work with to focus on and to look at is, it's quite a difficult job, but to look at product companies as a general landscape so that they can kind of see where they're going to fit in. And if they're keeping up to date with that, they should, be sort of future proof for things like this. For my business, we kind of hit a bit of a shock with the first outbreak. Everybody froze, all hiring across the board. And I guess it took a little bit of time to get people to get their teams working from home and get the processes back in place and things like that. And slowly the roles are coming back into the business. And that's mostly the roles within fintech, the roles within health tech, especially, as you can imagine. We work with companies that provide healthcare technology. We work with companies that are working on the fintech side with the big banks, and they're doing kind of helping see, where the banking system works with the government and what sort of loans they can put in place and all that different stuff. So I guess if you're looking at, if you know the product landscape quite well, and I appreciate not everybody will, it's looking at the situation that you've got in front of us with the COVID-19 situation and understanding what businesses are still going to need to operate within that space. So one of the companies that I work with is a health tech company, and they do all of the digital side of the products for a range of health tech companies, from big ones to kind of independent caregivers. And COVID for them means, that they're needed more now than ever before. The urgency's there, specifically on design. They create bespoke software, so there's kind of white labeled software, and then kind of each client has something slightly different depending on the need. But someone like them, for example, is always looking, and so that need won't go away. But it just depends on where the business sits within sort of the product landscape. So I guess that's what you need to kind of keep on top of, if that kind of sums up the question.
Okay, yeah, that sounds fair. Does it mirror your experience, Carolien, with who you've been applying for and what you heard back?
It sort of does. And I've had interviews which have, well, I mean, that's kind of dropped off a little bit within the fintech world mostly. Yeah, like one of the interviews that I have scheduled for next week, that's also more in the fintech side. So I've definitely seen it shift towards fintech. And what I've also experienced is, yeah, kind of like, even at the application stage, where people just kind of like unilaterally, send out emails saying, because that goes to one of your earlier questions where you were saying, how do you know if a role is still live? So what I've noticed is that what a lot of companies do is, if you have sent out an application, and you're like, okay, let's just follow up and see what's happening. They will just send out a blanket email, like, a couple of days later saying like, we're not recruiting for this role anymore, like, please keep an eye out for when we do repost it. So from my applications, I want to say, like, with probably about 50% of them, like, that's been quite good. But yeah, definitely where I see more roles appear is in fintech. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Is it any particular stage of the company? Because I've heard from my friend who's been applying that like really early startups seem to be more responsive because they don't really have these constraints and cash. They don't really depend on actually having live customers. Is it like true? Is it?
That's been my experience as well, where I see mostly like smaller companies and smaller teams still being quite keen to hire. And I think it's because hiring is more resource intensive for them as well. And what I've experienced is that when you're looking more at, like, larger companies, like, they're just, they have more, I want to say, mechanisms in place for dealing with something like this. So they will just institutionalize a hiring freeze, like, for this section of the company, and just kind of go, right, okay, we're putting all of that on hold for now. So yeah, definitely smaller companies, which is a little bit counterintuitive for me as well, because, I would think that, especially for a small startup, you want to extend your runway rather than, invest heavily in hiring. But that's been a very surprising, like, it's been a very surprising and welcome shift for me.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. And what has been your experience, Eloise, with the decision making about hiring, freezing, or continuing at Bard?
Yeah, so we're a Series A startup, and our clients are in the financial sector, which helps, and a kind of mix of big banks and scale-ups and startups. So, we have big clients who are still who are not going to be as affected by this, which is good, which means we can continue hiring. What we have done is being really selective about the roles we keep hiring for. So it's only essential roles. So everyone who's hiring has had to, like, really justify why they need the role and why they need it now and why they can't wait for, a few months to see how this plays out. So that means that we're still hiring for a product manager and data scientist, but some other roles have stopped.
Okay, fair enough. Sam, have you joined back? I think I've seen you on the list. Can you say something if you're back?
Oh, here. Shall I do a quick intro? Or do you want
Yes, please. Yes.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, go for it. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I am Sam Franklin. I'm the CEO of a company called Otter. You'll find us on otter.com.
That was a good try. Okay, we may want to suggest to him to do without the video. I do want you all to hear about Otter because they have an amazing feature that is still hiring. It's called Still Hiring, and they're updating companies that are still actively hiring, which I think is super useful. Hey, Sam.
Just to chime in, Liz, while we get Sam back, I've actually been recommended to use Otter by someone who, very politely rejected me, and have been using them ever since. And I would definitely recommend people look into it, because Otter is one of the the really nice platforms to find roles as well.
We are not sponsored by Otter, just
no. Sorry, I was not paid to say that, but no, it's just to kind of chime in and to say, they're quite nice. So if people haven't heard of them, check them out.
I was going to say, just off the back of what Carolien was saying before, kind of a couple of the reasons that you're going to see kind of the smaller startups and scale ups, still hiring and stuff like that. I guess some of the bigger companies have projects that, like Eloise said, some projects that are really, really kind of, really crucial, and some that are kind of slightly less essential. So what the bigger companies will have the option to do is pause hiring, take people from less essential projects that are runwayed for 2021, 22, and redirect that workforce towards the stuff that's crucial now. And also some of the bigger companies are, not always, but often less, more uniformed in terms of flexible working or quite strict. And so they've got a lot of internal processes to shift with in terms of moving towards flexible working. Whereas the smaller startups, people sort of sub 50 people, as soon as the outbreaks start to come, all of the companies I work with that are anyone 50 and under are like, right, we'll work from home, done pretty quickly. You know, they're much quicker, much more adaptable, and much more open to hiring people from abroad and different things like that. So they can really operate at speed. Whereas I guess the bigger companies are going to have multiple stakeholders. And like I say, a lot of them, it took a little bit of time to work out that working from home piece and all that different stuff. And that's why they've kind of probably put a pause on it. So you're going to see a lot of startups that are recruiting over the bigger companies. And it's going to give startups opportunity to get talent in that they wouldn't otherwise have access to. That they would normally be competing with the big beasts for, but actually here's an opportunity we can get people away from some of those bigger companies. So that could be a couple of reasons why.
Thank you. Sam, can we try to talk to you again? I know you're trying to connect via phone as well.
Yeah, sure.
Can you say something? Oh, great. Awesome. Can I also ask everyone who is not a panelist to turn off their video? I know it's a little bit painful and restrictive, but Sam is in the countryside and the connection is not great, so maybe we'll have better luck if we have less video going through. And Sam, let us know whenever you're ready. We'll crack on, and you just chime in whenever you're ready and connected and can speak. My next question is, so we've definitely talked about companies freezing hiring, and some companies taking it even a step further and sending some of the product teams on furlough or even into redundancies, which eventually means that quite a few people either feel uncertain about how safe their career is, or actually are out of job at the moment. So it's more than normal with less than normal roles, which means the competition is just mental, and the circumstances are probably not the best to look for a new job. So yeah. with this competition, how can a product manager stand out among the others, and what are the skills that have now become potentially even more important than before? Maybe Eloise, do you want to take this first one as a hiring manager?
Yeah, so I think for me, when I've kind of been doing these interviews and looking at CVs, one of the things that I'm prioritizing more than I would usually is motivation to work at Bud, and kind of interest in our mission, passion for the industry, knowledge of what we're doing and why. And that's mostly because at Bud, when you join, one of the best bits is when you come to the office and you see the environment, you meet all the people, and you quickly kind of get wrapped up in the excitement of what we're doing, and get brought on into the mission. Whereas we don't have that luxury now. Your onboarding is going to be us borrowing you a laptop, and you've got to kind of start from day one and be quite self-motivated. And it's going to be hard for you to really understand the vibe of the company as well as you would be able to in person. We still obviously have, regular team meetings and town halls, and try to keep that spirit alive, but it's definitely easier if you've already had that in-person connection.
Yeah, that's interesting. Have you been quite, more or less strict in hiring these days? Do you feel like you have more choice and you can be stricter? Or
yeah, our numbers of applications for the role has gone up. It's really incredibly high, with a lot of people kind of commenting that they've recently really sadly lost their jobs or been furloughed, or kind of looking to move on for that reason. So I suppose to make yourself stand out, make that clear on your application why you want to work at that company specifically and why your skills are a good match. So have that, also appreciating that I don't have loads of time to look through your application. So get that in the first sentence, make sure it's, your top bullet points. You don't have too much on your CV. Also kind of reaching out can be effective for some of the smaller companies if you can find out who the hiring manager or recruiter is, just to have an in-person chat and make sure you're a good fit, understand a bit more about the role so you can kind of really tailor that. That would be good. So I think those the main things. Definitely being stricter about fit for the role as well. So any information you can glean about which team they're hiring for. As a product manager, are you working on a consumer-facing app, or are you working in a B2B company like we are? Are you working in data science team? All of those things are going to affect like whose CVs I prioritize.
Okay, thank you. We have Sam now in text and writing. So he's saying, top tip, apply to fewer better roles. I've heard a few people talk about instant apply on LinkedIn, and that's a quick way to send it off lower quality applications, and agrees with Eloise. Sam, do you want to try talking? I know you said don't ruin the flow, but do you want to try? Yep.
I definitely agree with Sam's point on that. Like, if I see a low quality application, it's very unlikely that I'm going to look into it or take it further. It's really those tailored applications that catch your eye.
So Eloise, just to jump in with a question there, because like from my perspective, of course I always aim to send in a tailored application, and of course, I always aim to do my research on the company before, I send off an application. But in the current kind of climate where, you're having to really spend your time applying quite wisely, and I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you and Sam. But like, it's more about how do you strike the balance, because I've definitely done applications where like, I've done a real deep dive and, I know how their product works kind of inside out, and I send out a passionate, cover letter with, CV, and I just get no response whatsoever because, and that's the risk you take. So it like, my question is more about how do you, like, how would you advise to kind of like, balance those two things? Because, obviously you don't have infinite amounts of time, and every minute or hour that you invest in, tailoring and sending out one specific application is one that you're not spending, on another application. So how tailored and how kind of, how tailored should you be?
Yeah, so definitely, I mean, such a good point. And obviously I've been on the other side of this as well, like applying for roles. And I guess to that point, like, there's kind of different levels I'd expect at different stages. So if you're just kind of applying and your CV and cover letter pops up, if it's a really long cover letter, I won't have time to read it. So, but even just like a paragraph that shows you're enthusiastic will catch my eye, as opposed to someone who doesn't write anything. Just like, oh, I love the look of what your company's doing, and I'd like to work on a B2B platform. Like, that would be enough to kind of think, oh, this person's kind of deliberately applied for this. And a good CV, I think, doesn't have to be super tailored. It's particularly not if you're applying for fintech generally, or similar types of companies. And then I suppose, like, when I have an introductory call or initial call with a recruiter, I would expect someone to like have good questions and again be enthusiastic, be like engaged. And then by the time you come into interview, I guess that's the point where I would expect you to kind of be passionate about what we're doing. So yeah, really, really good point.
Okay, thank you.
What has been your experience, Carolien, with like which skills have worked, you felt, over the interview or in your CV?
Wow. It's always a shot in the dark from my end of the screen. Like I said, I've sent in applications where, I felt really passionate, and, I went to back to GA to, to kind of do a very tailored evening course on like how to write a PM CV, just to make sure I wasn't missing anything obvious, stuff like that. So I've really invested in, making sure I was getting it right. But sometimes, I want to say, yeah, kind of in line with what you're saying, Eloise, writing a short paragraph, kind of making it clear, like, okay, I understand what your business does, you know, I find it interesting, you know, and then to kind of like follow that up with, you know, your, I want to say your more basic cover letter stuff, highlighting your skills, that has been far more effective. I want to say than, you know, doing a real kind of like, you know, yeah, like a real tailored CV specifically to the role, like, you know, really trying to speak someone's language, because yeah, I think what Eloise is saying kind of mirrors my experience overall. Yeah.
Thank you. And what's your experience recently, Nick, in getting candidates to match?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the roles I see, the key skills that you're going to need, not necessarily need in depth, but you know, they want to see people with kind of knowledge of data. You want knowledge of, you want people that are passionate and different things like that, prioritization. And I think actually you can take those skills into your job search. So, you know, like we said, if you're from a fintech background, you want to look at, if you have a fintech companies, you want to look at where you can go, where is a logical next step. Health tech, similarly, whatever that might be, consumer facing and B2B and different things like that. And I appreciate that for people it's difficult. It's a bit of a balance between, you know, dedicating all your time to a specific application and then kind of shooting in the dark. The other side of that argument that my clients would say is, because we know everybody's situation, we know everybody's working from home, we know that people have free time, actually we're expecting to see better quality applications come through because we know that you've got the time to do it. So, you know, you have to look at both sides of the argument, and at the same time, you know, obviously people are losing their jobs, and so, you know, we're in quite a weird, you know, the product community is very much a community and people feel a responsibility to help other people out. So, but what I would say as well is look at roles that aren't in the UK. You know, here in London and the UK, we have a very, very healthy product culture. The COVID-19 kind of disaster is making everybody work, you know, remotely and different things like that. And people recognise when you know, not that everybody in London is amazing, but there's not a base level of talent, but it's a pretty good market. You look outside of London and start to look at other cities, other European cities, even if, you know, you can work in Australia, America potentially, etc. You can potentially find work or even contracts by just expanding your horizons a little bit. It may be another cultural shift of shifting your sleeping pattern or something like that. But at the end of the day, you know, we're in unprecedented times, so whatever decision you make, people aren't going to necessarily judge you for further down the line because we're all in the same sort of situation. So yeah, I think just expanding your mind a little bit. Well, the only negative of having such a healthy product culture here in London is we end up being quite London centric. But like I say, if you expand that search out a little bit, start with the places that you know, the products that you know well, the products that you know you would be a great natural fit for, and then expand from there. But that's the only way that that's the only advice I can give to people at the moment, I suppose, on that.
Could I jump on with a quick question, Nick? Sorry, Eloise.
No, please go ahead. I'll catch it. I'll do after.
Because a lot of what Nick was saying before is basically around you know, like the products that you know, but I'm also aware that a lot of the people in our meetup are people looking to transition into a PM role. So a lot of people might not have that experience, and I know, like, I've built a bit of a network myself, but I definitely don't feel like, you know, and like it's, you know, like it could definitely always be expanded, obviously. So how would you tailor your advice to people like that?
One of the things I do is sit down with people and look at their background. So lots of the people that I place come from project management backgrounds, engineering backgrounds, marketing backgrounds, especially if they're very data heavy, and different things like that. So you want to look at your background, look at your CV and see where your sort of key skills are and where you can and what you can use to build upon that. So like I say, if you've got a specific vertical, if you come from travel, there's somebody I worked with who was an editor for content for a travel company. She became a product manager for a different travel company because she already understood the domain quite well. So looking at different travel companies, try and bring it as logically to the role. Obviously, a career transition right now during COVID-19 is quite difficult, but try and make it a logical next step. What I want to see from a CV or a portfolio, if you're a designer or a certain product manager that has a portfolio, is you want to see a bit of a story and you want to see a bit of a journey. So it has to be a logical next step from that journey. And sometimes sometimes an application can live and die off the back of you, Caroline, can see why this role is the logical next step for you, but your job then becomes to make the client see that journey and that next step as well. And if they can't see what it is that you're seeing, then that's where there's going to be a little bit of a difficulty. So I think it's about that, understanding that sort of story element to it as well. I don't know if that helps, but
I think just to kind of build on that point, one of the things that's particularly tricky about this time for companies is that you need someone, I kind of touched on this earlier, like someone who will get going quickly. And often for a role, that means you've got quite a specific thing in mind that you need that person to just do from day one. And you know that you won't have as much face time to kind of warm them into things or coach or mentor them. So for example, in the role that I'm hiring for at the moment for a PM, I'm trying, it's for a team which is quite machine learning heavy. So I'm kind of prioritizing people who have prior data science experience, which is quite a specific, hard thing to hire for. And I'm kind of taking the hit on, I will hire for a more junior PM because I think that's an easier thing for me to mentor or kind of build up those skills in remotely. But I know, like, if you think about the practicalities of this, what happens is a hiring manager is looking at the CVs and filtering them. A hiring manager who won't have that domain expertise. So they've just asked me, what am I looking for and what am I prioritizing? So I've just said, I want someone with data science experience, if at all possible. I'm flexible about the level of experience, but it's within this range. And they'll be kind of plowing through the CVs looking stuff. So just make it really, it was kind of to the earlier point about like make your prior experience relevant, just be like really explicit about like, this is the thing that I have that I think would mean that I can just get started in this role for your industry or for your company, whatever you're doing.
Thank you. I think that's very useful. Thank you both.
Thank you all. I guess not really to build up on that, but taking into consideration that some people won't be able to find a job in this time, and hopefully most of us are protected to some extent by the savings of government. If someone takes the decision to take this time off, maybe tired of the conversion rates about the job that's dropped, obviously, what would be the best use of time right now to be on the other side of it? Well prepared? Is it networking? Is it upskilling? Like, what is it that you can like spend your energy on and become a better and more competitive product manager when this hopefully finishes in a couple of months? Eloise, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, so I think with being a PM, it's those practical examples that you're able to talk about in the interview. So an example where you identified a problem, you really understood the user needs, then you set about solving it and what you did along the way and how you iterated on that and ultimately used tech to solve that problem. So if you can get that through either your personal projects or collaborating, there's lots of kind of charities and groups that are springing up to solve really important problems now. So that might be a thing to get involved with if you've got the time and feel passionate about it. For certain types of roles, if you're looking for a technical PM role or you want to work on a consumer facing app, there are some basic tech skills that I think are really useful. Like you need to be able to talk to developers, so even doing some basic coding. My bias is AI, so learn some machine learning. There's great Coursera courses on this stuff, just so you've got some evidence that you can kind of speak the language, as it were. That would be useful.
Okay, sounds good. And what about maybe Nick, you could give some perspective on that. What about networking? Does it still make sense to reach out to people, try to build like really top of funnel contacts, or should you rather not talk to them in these difficult times?
No, I think that there's so many. Well, there's people who are in difficult positions at all levels. So there are director level people who are available to talk. There are, I've spoken to so many people. I've had people messaging me saying, I know someone who's a cloud consultant, not my area. I know someone who's a data scientist, not my area. But it's hitting everybody, regardless of their background. So it's definitely there. You definitely talk to people, definitely network. And I think, there will be a bounce back. We're an incredibly social bunch of people in this sort of area, tech, product design, all of that, and there will be a bounce back. So I guess what you want to spend your time doing is preparing for that bounce back as best as possible. As Eloise said, there's a lot of free online courses, even YouTube videos. There are people that I'm connected to personally who run free courses for design, run free courses for product management, just to give back, as something to do. It helps boost their profile, of course, but it's there to be done. So, we will get through this. And at the end of that, it's about how do I want to prepare? So you can go into this situation with a really negative mindset. You can say, right, in 6-9 months time, whatever the period of time is going to be, I don't know, where do I want to be at professionally? What do I want to be able to do? Again, you go and sit in front of a hiring manager like Eloise or somebody else, and they say, look, what's your story? You want to be able to say, I hit a bump in the road. It was a really tough time, but let me tell you what I did with that time. And what that's going to say to the hiring manager is this person's going to get their hands dirty. This person, even if they don't necessarily know tech or they don't know AI, machine learning, it's a sign to say this person's willing to learn. This person's positive. Actually, yeah, you know what? Let's take a chance on this person. Let's get them in. Let's see what they can do. So it's about what you want. Where do you want to be at the end of it, and what steps can you take to get there, basically. And there's a huge amount of free courses out there to be done.
Thank you. So if, for example, during this time, the person decided to take a job as a delivery driver, Deliveroo, or I don't know, something like that, still earning some money, also getting some life experience, probably not product experience, would you say putting it on the CV to show that there is like proper hunger for life and not staying still? Or
100%. I think, look, there's different hiring managers are different people at the end of the day. So some people are going to look at it and go, wow, what a go-getter. And some people are going to look at it and go, oh, they've left the tech. But I have that problem with maternity leave. I have that problem with a range of different situations, and it's making people see the value. I can't speak to what every single hiring manager in London or, across the world is going to say. Everybody's a little bit different. But I think if you're going and doing delivery driving, working in Tesco, wherever, everybody's responding pretty well to that sort of message on social media. But if you also partner that with what can I actually do to keep on top of tech? What can I do to stay involved in the community, whether it's meetups, free courses, etc., you can come out of that and say, actually, I'd had no coding experience before I went into this. Now I've come out of it. Here's the experience that I've got. Here's what I've learned. Different things like that. I think that will stand you in good stead. So I think, obviously my job is to try and get as many people into products as possible, but obviously I want to see people making positive decisions for their lives as well, not just what can I make a business out of. And like I said, I think the key thing is that we will bounce back, and how do you prepare for that bounce back?
Yeah, I think one other point on that is, if you currently have skills, like ultimately, I would never, this is an exceptional time. People are doing everything they can in really difficult situations. So I don't think there would ever be any judgment about like whatever you do in this time. But also, if you do have skills that you've already used and you think you'd find it easier to get a job with those skills, one common way to transition into product management is within an organization. So if you can find an organization that would take you on for your existing skills, but like over 6 months, in a year's time, you could transition with them because they're a product company, they value product managers, they would train you well, then that could be an option, a kind of practical option.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Thank you. Carolien, what's your plan for reappearing on the other side?
Well, it's kind of along the lines, which is very encouraging to hear, of what Eloise and Nick have been saying. Basically in January, when normal looked very different than the commute from my bedroom to my living room, I was applying for junior PM and PM roles, what I was finding at the time was also once I got to the interview stage, that basically the thing that it wasn't even necessarily something that was holding me back, but like something that I kind of, as someone who's coming from more of a nonprofit background, felt kind of like I wanted to bring to the role was a little bit more of experience in commerce. So one of the things that I did, when I started to encounter that is I reached out to some local businesses, and I asked them like, hey, I have these skills. I have, data skills. I have product manager skills. Like, are you looking for someone to kind of help you make decisions about your business? And I got lucky, and a local company was really enthusiastic to take me on, and that's the people that I'm actually consulting for now. So I kind of went from looking at their software and kind of training people up and kind of going like, okay, how do we make the data make sense? How do I talk to you guys about where to take action? To okay, so what does the furlough scheme look like in practice? And like, what needs to be in the letter. So also being flexible around that. Yeah, I mean, I've done a ton of Coursera courses as well. I know that Open Learning has like a mini MBA that you can do. I mean, there's lots out there, but I think, like I remember when Nick was saying earlier, like people are expecting higher quality because people have more free time. One thing that, and I don't mean to sound negative because I'm a very positive person, but like, one thing that I think, you definitely encounter as well is like, it's hard to be work from home in quarantine, like, even if you just have your normal work, but like if you don't have a job or like you've seen your prospects kind of, like evaporate over like the course of a week, you have to kind of really, take care of yourself first and foremost and kind of go like, okay, let's make sure that I'm okay before I start applying for jobs, because yeah, I think like one of the worst decisions I ever made was just like, go ahead with an interview, even though my partner had a fever in the other room. I was really panicked. Yeah, I think like, let's also remember that like job hunting during this time is extra stressful. And that like, if it is difficult, that's because it's difficult and not because, not because of a lack of positivity or motivation or whatever. And that working on skills, like, doing a Coursera course, or an open learning course or whatever, like is actually a tool to, to help yourself see the end rather than, perhaps a means within itself.
Thank you. Yeah, that sounds really, really great. Hopefully you get in the mindset of being there, and understandably it's quite a tough time to be positive sometimes. So I'm out of my questions, so we're out of time for my bit of questions. I'm moving on through the chat and a couple of admin points, so you can continue sending questions in the chat, and then if it is addressed to a particular speaker on the panel, please also add the name who you want to ask. And also, just to explain Sam's disappearance, we apologize for the connection, and we'll find a way of collating his thoughts as well. So we'll probably send an email or maybe write a post with his answers to the questions. So if you have any questions, I think he left his email as well, so you can reach out to him directly. So yeah, technology, if only we worked in IT and could fix it. So I see some questions already. I see the first one is, I think, addressed to Nick and his comment on finding job remotely. And the question is, what is your advice for remote applications from the UK or EU citizens?
I don't know. Sorry, say it again.
I think it's yes, the question is saying, what is your advice for remote applications from the EU or UK citizens? I think it's about your comment on finding jobs outside of the UK, like Australia.
Yeah. Obviously taking a common sense approach to where that you have sort of the right to work and stuff like that. The EU is still a massive sort of community, and a lot of different places that you can work. Even I still help a lot of Brits go abroad to work, and all sorts of people have different visa situations and stuff like that. Some people have exceptional talent visas and different things like that. So obviously knowing where you can work. But I think even away from, she's just put in the chat, I'm a UK citizen stuck in lockdown in Spain. Really sorry to hear that. I've got some family stuck in the Caribbean, people stuck all over the place at the moment. It's crazy. But yeah, if you are in Spain, if it's a situation of, I can work in the UK, but I'm stuck in Spain, you can still say that. I think, if you listen to Eloise's comments, earlier, actually, if somebody comes into the email, who's perfect, product experience, ML experience, all that good stuff, consumer facing, B2B facing, etc. The fact that person's in Spain, for many people, will not be a hiccup. We need the best possible person that we can to get this business forward to the next level. So I'm just saying, don't let that be a potential barrier for you. Like I say, everyone's got different areas they can go and work and things like that, but it's worth a conversation.
Yeah, the cost of sending a laptop to Spain wouldn't be that high, and some companies wouldn't even need to do that. So
yeah, exactly.
Cool, thank you. There's a question for Eloise. What's your view on applicants who are on temporary visas, like Tier 5, who might need sponsorship in the future but are available to work now without any sponsorship?
That's a tough question. I'm not entirely sure, to be perfectly honest. My initial reaction is kind of similar. If you were the perfect candidate, like, I guess try and make it work, but obviously we are, that makes it more uncertain about whether you'll be able to continue the role, which might be a factor. Sorry, it's not a very helpful answer, but I'm not sure.
Thank you. We have a question about course recommendations. Free course recommendations would be helpful. I think we probably will take it offline and maybe collate something like an email where we just send the links. Not sure who it's addressed to. What are your thoughts on people going for junior associate PM roles when thinking about transitioning? It seems the market in London for those roles is quite small to begin with.
Yeah, that market is quite small, and I think a lot of the people that I've worked with who come into the product market have sort of a dream company they want to work for and different things like that. And a lot of the time, the associate roles or the junior roles I have don't fit the ambition of the company they want to work for and different things like that. That it is quite small. I think in that sense, I do a lot of work with people transitioning in. The point that Eloise made earlier is a really good one, of getting into a business with the current skill set that you have and making it clear about your ambition to transition. But yeah, that's one of the best ways. Like, I always use the example of the girl that I mentioned earlier, who was a content editor and didn't like the product from a content perspective and used to butt heads with the head of product all the time. And eventually the head of product said, look, if you think you can do it better, join the product team. She said, fine, I will. And 6 months later, she was in the product team. So, things like that can happen. So it's about, getting your foot in the door first, and then maneuvering from there.
Yeah, fair enough.
And sorry, just to tag on to that, Nick, would you have any kind of specific recommendations of like particularly good roles to look for? So for myself, I've been looking at product owner roles a little bit more, like perhaps delivery manager roles as well, which is also my background, because like those transitions are a little bit easier to make. Yeah. So is there a good kind of like range that you have in mind for those types of roles?
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking for a product delivery manager at the moment for a fintech company. It depends, as with every question in product, the answer is it depends with everything. But
so keep being a good product manager.
Exactly. Yeah. Avoid giving straight answers as much as possible until it all comes to a head. But I think, it's a good point. Looking at product owner roles, looking at delivery manager roles. Also, even product operations roles. I've worked with some product people that come from operational backgrounds and different things like that. There's a huge variety out there. It's just finding what is that right thing for you. And again, does your story tally up to their story? And you're only going to find out by asking, right? Obviously, I'm a salesperson, and my job is to go and ask questions. But you try. Obviously, you want to start with the things that you feel are an obvious next step, but then you slowly expand your horizon. And a lot of roles either come from the roles that I place, either it was a logical next step because of this person's experience, or it wasn't a logical next step, but we've really connected as people, our missions have connected, and actually let's go for it. I think we can do some really great stuff. So it's one of those two. You want to start off with the more logical and tangible approach if you are sort of time sensitive, and then obviously the other approach will sort of come after that. So
thank you.
There was one more question that I missed, and I think maybe Carolien, your view would be interesting in this one. How does a candidate from professional services or consulting can stand out when applying for PM roles? They seem to have similar background. Do you have any views on like this particular type of transition?
So it's interesting because I feel like I almost made a transition, well, not a transition, but like, you know, I kind of tried to do the reverse on, you know, in my day to day. So what I found that like, as a consultant, you're more on the outside of the business. Like you definitely want to highlight, you know, your people skills, your influencing skills. I think like those things, you know, are completely invaluable for a PM. You're also not going to use Scrum that much, but like, you know, as a consultant. So one of the things you could definitely think about is, you know, looking more into, you know, like, you know, agile methodologies and, you know, how you might have, you know, how you might have worked with that and highlight that a little bit more is what I would say. Because, you know, you come into so many different work environments, you know, like whatever experience you have with that. And like as a consultant, you're constantly like talking to stakeholders, like this is all you do. So like I think that's a really important skill as well to kind of like highlight and pick up. But you know, yeah, I think that's the main things that I've kind of found like, you know, sort of overlap. But yeah, I feel like I'm not giving you a complete answer probably to that question.
That's your story. That's good. Thank you. Do you have anything to add, Nick, from your experience of like selling consultants into product roles?
Yeah, there's in the last couple of years, there's actually quite a rise in sort of product consultancies. So like you say, it's interesting because as a consultant, you're on the outside, and as a product manager, you get under the hood of the business. And so the product consultancy is kind of an interesting way to go. But yeah, and people come from all sorts of interesting backgrounds, you know, design strategy backgrounds, product strategy backgrounds, and, you know, general strategist, consultant backgrounds and stuff like that. So that, again, that could be a really interesting way to go. I think that people sometimes focus too much on the job title and, you know, product and what is it and all these weird and wonderful things, but actually people want to see numbers, impact, what can you do, what have you done, soft skills, how can you influence the business, how can you influence stakeholders, and how can you understand a consumer. I mean, those are the real core things that you need to put in your CV and get that across. Hi, I have a track record of influencing people in the business to make these decisions, and I came to these decisions because I understand the consumer. Those are the things that are really important that we need to see. The rest of it is sort of glitz and glamour, but those are the kind of the core things that you want to be able to see. And you can do those things from a marketing perspective, an engineering perspective, a design perspective. It doesn't have to be product. That's just a job title. You know, you want to be able to show that you're flexible and that you can go and have an impact on the business. Show that actually, even though I didn't have the job title, here's why. I had this idea, I ran with it, it was successful, etc. And that's something that I think probably more people do in businesses every day than they actually realize. And then obviously you've got great people that can train you up on the actual product process part. But you know, the actual skill part, a lot of people have it in the locker.
Good.
I definitely agree with both those points. I recently interviewed someone who kind of came from a consultancy background, and I think one thing they did less well was like an appreciation of how consulting and product can be different. So like so many of the skills are similar, and absolutely bring those out. The, you know, stuff Carolien was talking about and Nick, you know, be humble about, you know, these are the things that I think I want to develop as a product manager. And if someone spins that round and says, you know, actually the reason why I want to move into product management is because of this, and I haven't been getting this in my current role, but I like really want to develop it, then that's kind of more compelling than someone trying to say like, oh, they're the same thing, you know, because I know they're not exactly the same thing and I know what I'm looking for. So that's just one thing to raise. And
a big part of product is having that empathy. And if you go into talk to somebody who's accomplished in product and say, well, they're the same thing, you're going to alienate your audience. You're going to lose that sort of empathetic credibility that you're trying to build up as well. So, you know, that could be a killer blow, as it sounds like it probably was.
I'm still deciding.
Okay, thank you. We have an interesting question, and I probably want Eloise to take it from the like hiring manager perspective. Daniel is asking, do you think a video application would be beneficial in making your application stand out and getting your personality across?
Gosh, that's I don't know if our system deals with video. Like, how are you gonna submit that as part of your application?
YouTube? I don't know.
I've done it. Like, hi, this is embarrassing story time, but like I've actually, there's a platform, and don't ask me what it's called because I have no idea. But a few years ago, I actually did do a video application, and it was just like, it was through one of those, like, you know how they like, you know, pop up every now and again. It's like, ooh, try this way of standing out, you know, do a 5-minute intro about yourself and why you want to, like, you know, and why you want this role. And oh my god, it's so cringy. Like, you have to, you know, look at yourself and edit your own video. It's and it's really hard because you have nothing to respond to. But yeah, I've definitely done it. But you tell us if that would have helped.
I don't know. I feel like this is a personal bias thing that comes up here as well. Like, some people would love it, other people would be like, wow. I think I probably prefer just a really clear CV, because like it also comes down to that time thing. Like, it's a bit unfair for me to spend like 5 minutes watching a video if I'm only going to spend 30 seconds reading someone's CV. I don't know what like kind of our recruiters would say. Certainly initial phone call is really good. Really tricky one. I would probably prioritize kind of like a strong, clear CV, and if you can, like a really engaging like first phone call, if you can get one of those.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Also, with the video thing, you also run the risk that if you're not that confident on camera, or if you come across as shy, or, you know, you could again potentially alienate. If you could send one and it could be killer and it could just be amazing, and it could really work, but you're running a massive risk of maybe not giving the best possible you to the person. And the hiring manager wants to see you versus other candidates. So if everybody else is on paper and on by the phone, and then you are a video interview, it's difficult to compare the two. If it was all videos, then that's a little bit different. But yeah, probably wait to. I've spoken to clients about this, and it's pretty 50-50 split. Some of them want to see it, and some of them don't. So.
Mainly thinking how terrible I'd be on video interviews, like video application.
I mean, I guess one way around it is, like, so this is not so much to toot my own horn at all, because please don't go look for this. But so what I've done actually is, as part of my portfolio, you know, is I've recorded myself doing, doing my presentation, doing my pitch essentially for, you know, a product that I designed. So that way you can kind of see me and you can see me deliver the pitch. But at the same time, it's, you know, it's a link in my CV, well, to my portfolio, and then you have to want to really go, you know, into the portfolio and like click the video.
But that's the difference. Once somebody's decided, okay, I'm going to look at the portfolio, it's taken 30 seconds to look at the CV. When I say, okay, I'm going to look at this portfolio, I'm dedicating 5 minutes to look at this portfolio. So that's the level of engagement that you've elicited from me. The question is, you know, do I want to dedicate that time to this person in the first place? That's the difficulty. But yeah.
I think that would be a really nice idea if like people had links in their CV, and by the time I'm kind of like already interested in them, to like get a better understanding of, you know, what their skills are.
As in like a portfolio application kind of thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That would
okay.
be a draw.
Interesting. Okay, we have a question that is upvoted a lot. So I'm going to read it out first. When you're looking at someone who is transitioning into product management work or associate PM roles with less PM experience, what is it you're looking for if it's not PM skills, character, initiative, etc.? So I guess can be Eloise or Nick. But some of it has been touched on already, but maybe like specifically, I guess the question is around no experience at all, whether softer things like character, initiative are important, how to highlight them.
Sure, I can kick off. So initiative and passion is super important. I kind of want passion, particularly as a startup, for what we do. So that would be a differentiator. Sometimes people are kind of generally passionate, but I'm not super clear on like why they want to work with us as opposed to some other company, particularly as a B2B company. That's quite important. Sometimes we get people coming in who like seem really passionate about consumer facing products, but we're not a consumer facing product. So kind of directed passion and initiative is great. Yeah, like we touched on humility earlier as well, like a really good understanding of kind of what your strengths and weaknesses are, what you're selling, you know, bringing to the team. Someone who can like build that rapport is really important as PM, because you're going to have to go into and act as a visionary for your product, both within the company and externally. So, you know, someone who's kind of overselling or kind of doesn't come across as credible, like would be a kind of red flag for me. So yeah, and someone kind of who can give good examples and be clear about, this is the problem I'm solving, this is how I solved it, this is the impact that I got, comes across
even
well.
if it's not product related, just like
Exactly.
generally for the business. Yeah, okay, thank you. Worried that we have quite a few questions to go through, so I'll probably just move to the next one. The question is, given that IR35 has been deferred, I'm looking for a contract role, how does the interview recruitment process may differ compared to a perm role? Do you have any insights into that?
I'm not doing a huge amount of contract recruitment at the moment, so I don't know. I have had a couple of people who were on contract who are being asked to move to a permanent role. But I'm not, I'll be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure. It's another case by case basis situation. I'm helping them negotiate sort of what the salary is versus the day rate and all this kind of stuff. And people that would otherwise probably not look at a permanent role, they're appreciating that, you know, companies are going through a big transition and they need to help out as best they can. So I guess that's their version of taking a little bit of a pay cut. But I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you. It depends really.
Okay. Like maybe as a follow-up, similar question, contract related. How is a series of 2 contractor roles viewed by recruiters? Is it a deterrent or seen as a strength, transferable skills, etc.? So I guess transition in between contract and perm product roles, is it in any way a disadvantage?
The only thing that, not necessarily disadvantage, because it's still the same questions that, you know, Eloise and I are asking. What's the impact that you had? What initiatives did you show? You know, what's the character, etc. The only thing is what a lot of my clients will ask, why they're looking for a permanent role and how do I know this person's going to stick around? A lot of people go contracting because they want their brain to be engaged and touch on multiple different things. And actually, you know, how do I know that this person's going to stick around? So if you are transitioning from a product contract role into a product perm role, and then definitely kind of that cover letter thing that we covered before and saying, you know, I might not be looking for a perm role, but I tell you what, this is the company I want to work for. I've seen what you guys are doing. I'm really passionate about this specific space. Maybe they touched on something before that was quite similar and actually they really, really like that space, and then they can put that across. But otherwise, yeah, it's just understanding that sort of transition basically.
Cool, thank you. Next question. For someone wanting to make a transition, are certifications like those offered by product school useful? We get this question almost every meetup. I think Nick already even answered this question at one of our previous meetups. So Eloise, you may be looking at if a person doesn't really have much product experience, are you looking at certifications and courses as like a substitute of experience? Or is it not really important?
Sure. I mean, caveat that this is probably a personal bias. I'm sure people feel completely differently about this. And I can also see one that's kind of like, are certain things more valued than others? Again, I'm sure that's just completely personal bias, whatever someone's heard of or some friend has done. For me, I see them as like a useful tick box. So if you haven't had any product experience, kind of taking the initiative to do a course, shows that you're clearly interested in it and you probably have like a basic understanding of what product does. It's not a substitute for me for real life experience working on products. And if you can't get that, you know, in your current role or another way, then I would suggest kind of side projects or I'm kind of slightly reluctant to say side projects because people have a lot on already without kind of taking on elaborate side projects. But even just like simple things, you know, maybe you draw out examples from your past and kind of present them in a product type way. Or, you know, tell me a story about in your existing role, a time where you saw a product done badly and what you would have done better in that situation. So kind of some sense that you've thought about that knowledge and processed it and applied it to the real world is quite important.
Okay, thank you. Another one for Nick. As a recruiter, would you say there has been a noticeable influx of people looking for work within product, or not as much as we might assume? A product manager being quite an essential role with the company suggests to me that people are maintaining positions, perhaps, more than other non-essential roles within the business. What change have you seen? Or to Eloise, has there been an increase in applications? I think Eloise touched on the increase in applications and that you've seen quite a few. And I guess, the question to you, Nick, stands on is our perception that the market has become really much more competitive true, or are most companies still maintaining their jobs as it's an essential one?
Like I say, I think a lot of the product companies that I work with hire sort of for the future, especially when things are going well, especially when they are sort of C, D, E rounds of funding and they're trying to just build out their sort of runway for as long as possible, basically, and sort of trying to future-proof the business. And so those roles that were sort of for future that aren't really mission critical, those ones are going on hold, and the mission critical ones that are, how do we drive revenue right now? How do we keep as many users in the building right now? Is this happening, really, really right now? And if anything, it's kind of shortened not the lifespan, but the amount of planning that product companies are doing for the future. That's kind of come down a little bit. So because of that, there's less roles, and thus you get more competition because there's much more people applying for each role. And then on top of that, there's added pressure because, as Eloise said, every time you go into a role now, there isn't a big 2 or 3 month onboarding process, and then you can slowly work your way up. It's okay, the shit's about to hit the fan. We need stuff to happen right now. And so you've got to kind of be prepared for that and jump in. So yeah, the product manager role, especially for product-based businesses, is super, super crucial. But it's super competitive right now at the same time. It's competitive anyway, but at the moment it's insane. But that shouldn't discourage people as well at the same time. It's competitive anyway. If you want to be successful at anything, it's going to be competitive. And if you have sort of a dream or a reason or a mission, it's likely other people are going to have that as well. So you have to keep chipping away. A lot of this career is chipping away at things a lot of the time.
So just to kind of, I want to say, jump on that question a little bit. Because you mentioned as well, Eloise, you have a lot of these applications and people standing out. I'm thinking of talks and stuff that you can watch online, basically anything to kind of help people get engaged with the community. Do you think there are ways for people to kind of network right now, without having the access of going to a meetup or, stuff like that?
Just from kind of personal take on that, I think the number of talks and things that are happening online is, rapidly gone up. Most of the kind of in-person speaking engagement, Liz is running a conference all online now.
Amazing.
Little plug for that, Liz. So in a sense, I hope that access will be easier because, a lot of people don't want to go to a talk in person after they've had a long day at work, or they've got other caring commitments or other things to do. So hopefully there's more kind of happening in the day that they can just log on to for an hour. Having said that, networking online, all of these things are new. People are trying to figure them out. I'm not sure how good networking, if it compares to in-person networking. I don't really know.
We are definitely going to try it out now. We may encounter some technical difficulties that Anya has bravely been trying to overcome, but you will get an idea in about 10 minutes how good networking is online. Okay, I have two more questions. We have one question a bit higher up from Katie. I just wanted to comment on it. The question is, in case studies, what are the top 3 things that tick the boxes and 3 that result in a strong no reaction? I feel like it's a really big question, and we have an event plan for case studies specifically. I don't feel like we can really answer it in a generic way that would be useful. So we're not ignoring the question, we are just turning it in a whole other meetup. And then the next question we have on the list is, What would you expect to be the current number of applicants per position? Rough idea appreciated. So probably always you have a number that you've experienced, and I guess Nick, you have an idea as well of how competition looks like.
Ours is well over 100.
Yeah, I would say the same. I was going to say between 100 and 150. And that, for me, 100 to 150 for a, say, senior product manager, and that's if I put it on LinkedIn, and that was before COVID-19, mind you. So at the moment, if I do have roles that I'm working on, I'm probably not advertising them at the moment. I'm basing it off the network that I know and the people that I know personally and stuff like that, because, you know, things are probably going to be about 1.5 times higher than they would have been. So I think we're probably looking at close to 200 applicants. And again, people looking at, and that would be people abroad who are looking at work abroad, so looking at remote work in the UK, and all sorts of contractors are now coming into the perm market and all sorts of different stuff that you have to compete with. So yeah, probably close to 200 people.
What? Thank you. Julia is asking, how often do you interview someone after their internship? What level of knowledge and experience do you expect from them? So basically zero experience, we're talking internship.
It depends which role we're looking for. So if it's a kind of, we usually have an idea if we want, you know, junior, mid or senior PM. In which case, if it was a junior role, we'd definitely interview people like straight out of an internship, and we'd be expecting a basic understanding of what product management is. You know, we'd expect you to be able to do a basic case study, and sure, you'd miss lots of things, but have a sensible approach, structured approach to problem solving. You know, have read, read the basic books, read how to crack a PM interview. So you've got some idea of like a sensible way to structure this stuff. We wouldn't be expecting the level of kind of taking it to another level, or the level of creativity that I'd expect to see from a kind of mid or senior. And yeah, an appreciation of how their experience kind of applies and what they want out of their career next.
Thank you. I'm conscious that I know Eloise needed to run at 7:40. Still people need things to go for. It does happen. We have the very last question to answer, and then we'll try to do the networking bit. Can I apply for junior PM role with MBA degree, and if I have zero experience? Kind of a similar role, but with an MBA degree. A similar question, but yeah. Does MBA change anything for the product roles?
I can just speak on behalf of my clients. Obviously, I'm not the hiring manager, I'm just the recruiter. But not a huge amount. It's still looking at problem solving. You know, if you've got somebody who's got an MBA, but, they aren't a natural problem solver, how well do you flesh out the problem before you look at a solution? One of the biggest problems that I have with people that go to interviews, they jump to solutions before they flesh out problems and different things like that. So it depends entirely on you, and if you have those sort of soft skills and that sort of initiative. But again, there's no qualifications out there that are going to completely replace experience. It would have to be a marriage of the two. But yeah.
Got it. Thank you. And thank you to all the panelists. I've just received a write-up from Sam, who's been really worried that he couldn't join. So now we have a document from him that outlines his view of the answers on the questions. So we'll share that with you over email. Thanks again. That's been really wonderful. And to the tricky part now, we'll try to do some networking. Anya, I think I've unmuted you. You need to let us know what's happening.
Yeah, okay. So technology sucks.
Cool.
That's the like tool.
Oh, Eloise needs to go. Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to drop off now. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And feel free to get in touch with more questions.
Thank you very much.